The last chroma stars disappeared on the horizon, and it became pitch dark. The only sounds that could be heard were the calm of the night, the waves of the sea, from time to time the lullaby of the wind, and the clatter of hoofs of two horses on the sandy ground and their snorting. Sasha slowed her mount from gallop to trot, and Cheyenne did the same. They had left their pursuers behind with difficulty. During the escape, the young woman had repeatedly fired a few bullets from her firearm at the enemies, as well as their horses, and at some point it had become quiet. She certainly hadn't hit all the knights, but it had apparently been enough, because the pursuers no longer seemed to be after their targets. Now she used the pistol to light up the Black Knight by shooting magic lightning bolts in all shades of purple in front of the small group every now and then. Cheyenne herself saw enough, but she knew that her companions probably had problems with it. Adukas was happy about the colored magic balls, because he was constantly chasing them. Sasha's pistol is really useful. It looks like a special weapon. Is it an elemental weapon? Since Glaczio assumed that my bow had an element, there are probably not only elemental swords, but also other such combat tools. I couldn't explain this glowing lightning pattern on the pistol any other way. It even seems to move like real lightning. So Sasha's element would be lightning. Wow. And these lightning balls. Maybe that's a difference between elemental weapons and normal weapons? That these special combat tools stand out in not only appearance and power, but also in handling? These lightning orbs look like elemental magic. Maybe this special Umbraura orb with the elements set in the weapons can somehow give them a special power or magic of the respective element or something like that. That would also make it easier for me to understand why my bow does not need arrows. This theory must be true, otherwise I can't explain these lightning balls. But that would be awesome. Anyone who doesn't have enough Umbraura in their body and therefore can't use elemental spells on their own would only need to get an elemental weapon, and they could still use it to cast magic. Only of the element assigned to them, but still. Fantastic. I'll ask Sasha about it later. Cheyenne and her friend stopped the horses. They had now arrived at the only tree far and wide near the beach. To the right of them there was only dry, cracked soil for miles, and a little further to the left was the Beach of Light, which ended in the sea after a few meters. This stretched from Saraley to here and seemed to extend even further and become wider. Sasha jumped off her horse and tied its reins to a hanging branch of the old partially withered tree. Then we should probably take a break here or spend the night, I suppose. Glaczio, who strangely enough didn't say a single word during the whole escape, also climbed off the other large brown animal and took a few steps towards the beach before he stopped and stared at the sea. What's wrong with him? Cheyenne also dismounted from the horse and tied the reins to another old branch of the tree. Sasha looked at her acquaintance for a moment, but then she paid him no further attention. Cheyenne, can you help me for a moment? We need a few branches from this old tree here so that we can make a fire. In this area it always gets so cold at night, and I don't necessarily want to freeze my butt off. You probably don't either, right? The girl nodded and went to her friend to help her break off the branches. Of course I'll help you. I don't mind the cold that much, but I really don't mind a warm little fire. I think the flames are totally beautiful, how they dance and shine in their beautiful colors. Sasha smiled and shared Cheyenne's opinion. Oh yes, fire not only warms, but it's also really nice to look at. Whenever I'm out alone at night and have to spend the night somewhere, I think about my life a lot. And most of the time it makes me sad. But when I look at the fire for a while, it somehow gives me strength and new hope. So she likes fire as much as I do. Nice. Oh, I was going to ask her about her weapon. Cheyenne pulled with all her strength on an unruly branch, but it finally gave way and threw it on the ground behind her. While she was looking for a branch that was easier to break off, she asked her friend a question. Sasha? Your pistol you have there, is that an elemental weapon? After all, it can create these lightning balls. The young woman threw one broken branch to the other and seemed to be pleased with Cheyenne's attention. Yes, that's right. You pay attention. This is an elemental weapon. It's very practical, don't you think? 3 different projectiles can be fired with it. With a switch I can set which one I want. On the other hand, I can use normal ammunition. The only disadvantage is that I have to buy this all the time, should I happen to have some money with me. Then there's special explosive ammunition that causes an explosion a few seconds after launch, but I don't use that very often because it's outrageously expensive. Last but not least, I can make use of the element of the weapon. As you might guess, I've been given the element of lightning, so I can shoot lightning bolts and normal lightning bolts with my pistol. This is absolutely insane, because I don't have enough Umbraura for elemental spells, but I still wanted to be able to use magic all the time, and this weapon makes it possible. I was so lucky that I got it. The Imperator of my clan likes me very much, so he had this elemental pistol made and gave it to me then. He knew that I couldn't afford such an expensive weapon, and when he gave it to me I really felt honored, because he usually never gives anything to a shadow servant, but somehow he likes me very much. I also think the lightning pattern on it is really pretty. Cheyenne nodded. Are all elemental weapons so beautiful that it's a shame to use them in battle? Probably. She had already broken off some branches and was of the opinion that it was enough for a fire. I think we've collected enough twigs, and I don't know if I should say this now, but I think you have found an admirer in your Imperator. Sasha started laughing and shook her head in amusement. Cheyenne was also amused, and together they carried the collected branches a bit away from the tree. The friends put the branches together in a pile. Sasha pulled out her pistol, held down the trigger with her finger, and let a lightning bolt strike the firewood with a loud bang, whereupon it began to burn. The young woman sat down by the fire and warmed her hands on it. Adukas curled up next to the heat source and closed his eyes. Only Cheyenne was still standing and looking at the sea. Sasha followed her gaze and sighed. This idiot. Don't worry, Cheyenne. He also gets along well on his own. Actually, I don't even understand why he wants to stay with you. He doesn't really have a good reason for this. I would strongly advise you not to give him even a little bit of your trust. You don't know him. I know he helped you and stuff, but be careful with him. A year ago I would have entrusted him with my life, but today I can't even turn my back on him with peace of mind. It would really be best if you just ignored him. The girl sighed. Since he had spoken to the knights, he had behaved differently than before. Cheyenne didn't know Glaczio like that. What was it about the knights earlier? And why would Atropax want to kill him? He denied having anything to do with the knights, but now I don't believe him anymore. He just knows too much about them, and now they know him too. But I should ask him myself. Sasha would certainly not give me an answer. After all, she says I should just ignore him. But she is right on one point. Why does he still want to stay with me now? Well, if I hadn't helped him on the horse before, Glaczio wouldn't be here now. But he might as well go now, or tomorrow morning. He suspected that I was the chosen one, and that's probably why he has accompanied me so far, because he wanted to take care of me. So far I still understand it, but now Sasha is with me and can take over. She also takes me to the shadow servants, so he has no reason to be here anymore. In addition, I can take care of myself now a bit. However, if I ask him that, he's guaranteed to not give me an answer, or he will lie to me again as before. Cheyenne was about to go to Glaczio when Sasha told her something important. Hey, there's a small change of plans. I've thought about everything again, and I think I know how we can find out who you really are. The Superator's parents are the 2 elders of the Shadow Servants. As such, they are very wise and enormously religious when it comes to the gods. I'm sure they can somehow find out if you're the chosen one or not, and I think it's most important for you to know that for sure right now. And if you really are the chosen one of darkness, it would be advantageous if you met the Superator. The elders live in northern Halonia, at the foot of the gigantic Mount Nightblade, so that's our next goal if you agree. Cheyenne nodded, because she really wanted to find out who she was as quickly as possible. She hoped that she wasn't the chosen one, but she couldn't prove it. These wise people would finally be able to give her certainty. She didn't want to think about what would happen if she really was one of these two most special people in the world. She wished so much not to have to take on this great responsibility and suppress the possible future, although deep down she knew that she should deal with it. Because the probability of being chosen was very high. Everything spoke in favor of it. The girl groped through the fine sand and walked towards Glaczio. Sasha had advised her against it, and actually Cheyenne herself wasn't quite sure whether she really should and wanted to talk to him. After all, he made her feel insecure about his behavior, and she wondered if she hadn't been terribly mistaken about him. After all, he had lied the whole time without even batting an eyelid. He had never told the girl his suspicions, and had only told her excuses. Some of them she had even believed him. But Cheyenne would have overlooked that because Sasha had done the same thing after all. But now the knights knew him too, although he had firmly asserted that he had nothing to do with them during the night near the Glaczio mountains. At the time, he even seemed disappointed in Cheyenne for accusing him of such a thing. Was it possible that this was also just a very convincing lie? But then he could act very well. But maybe there was a good reason for all this, and the girl would be wrong. She would only know if she asked him. Glaczio sat in the sand. Next to him lay the ice sword. It glowed ice blue and illuminated the night with its glow, within a radius of about 1 meter. Cheyenne suspected that he was using it to be able to see a bit in the dark. Sasha's lightning gun also lights up, and when I remember, Atropak's water sword also had a blue glow around it. Elemental weapons all seem to glow in the color of their element at night. My bow would probably make everything even darker. Fascinating. Cheyenne didn't really know whether to sit down next to the healer or stand. She decided on the latter, and since he had his eyes closed and made no move to talk to her, the girl started talking for a change. "Are you okay? I mean, because of the wound on your face. Will it heal completely?" The sea breeze played with Glacio's hair, and the blood-clogged part of it became visible from time to time. Slowly the healer opened his ice-blue eyes and looked straight out to sea. The light blue glow that surrounded him made him seem almost mystical and even more beautiful than during the day. Even though Cheyenne was no longer sure whether she still liked Glaczio and should trust him, she couldn't deny that he was the most beautiful person she had ever seen in her life. She really hoped that the cut wouldn't leave a scar on his face, even though she really agreed with Sasha by now, and he actually deserved a rub-down. The healer avoided looking at Cheyenne and continued to look at the sea. "Little angel, of course it heals completely. Tomorrow evening you won't see any more of it. I can also heal my own injuries, you know." The girl sighed. "Oh, that's right. I didn't even think about that anymore. And if he says tomorrow evening I won't see anything more of the wound, I assume that he will continue to stay with us." She shook her head and collected herself again, for it cost her some effort to ask Glaczio the question that burned in her soul. "Glaczio, why did the knights know you? What do you have to do with them? You told me you had nothing to do with them, but now I can't quite believe it. And why does Atropax want to kill you?" The healer continued to look out to the sea, unimpressed by the question. Now he behaved the same way towards her as he did with Sasha. It seemed as if he didn't pay attention to Cheyenne at all, but she stubbornly stood next to him until he finally answered. "You do well to curb your curiosity, honey. Why do you ask me these things if you don't believe me anyway? I could tell you anything. You wouldn't be able to filter out what the truth is. I know what your problem is with this whole thing. You are insecure and do not trust me, although I have freed you from your misery several times even. But your doubts are reason enough for you to think it possible that I could not be your ally, but your enemy, right? You're accusing me of having something to do with the knights again, just because they know me. I beg you. You have to decide for yourself who I am in your eyes. I wonder what you would do if you thought I was one of the bad guys. Would you kill me with an arrow too, chosen one? Like the night earlier? A very precise, merciless shot in the head, and the life is extinguished. You're really good at aiming, and you even manage to look pretty when you kill my angel of death. Cheyenne flinched. How could he say such things? She had previously managed to push aside her remorse for the terrible offense when he reminded her of it again. Why is he so mean to me? I had to kill the knight, otherwise Glaczio would have died. He should be grateful to me. He knows exactly that I'm blaming myself, and is doing this now on purpose, just like before. He probably wants me to leave him alone, and don't ask him these questions. And to get me out of my concept, he says these mean things that hurt my soul, just so that I leave him alone. But why? What have I done that he is now suddenly so mean to me? If he continues to behave like this, he should just leave us alone and leave. Neither I nor agitated Cheyenne turned around. There was no point in trying to talk to the healer any further. His words had hurt her and made her feel even more insecure, and she didn't trust him one bit anymore. He might as well be one of her enemies, and might use a careless moment to kill her. At least that was the impression she had of him now. On the other hand, it was Glaczio who constantly protected Cheyenne and helped her. He had told her not to die, so why would he want to kill her? The fact that the knights and Atropax would rather see him dead than alive would also speak against it. But Cheyenne just couldn't be too careful. She didn't want to be robbed of life, and it seemed as if in the future she would have to pay attention to every instinct she possessed and every little feeling. Everything in her cried out to be careful. If Glaczio was able to change his character from one second to the next, it is possible that he could do the same with his goals. Sasha had already indirectly mentioned that he always acts in his favor. The girl was extremely confused and did not know how to assess the healer. It was more likely that he was her ally, but his behavior bothered her. Such a sudden change, which works against one's own comrades, simply seemed strange. On top of that, he was always telling her lies just to hide the truth at all costs or distracting from the topic, which of course made the whole situation even more suspicious. In addition, Glaczio hadn't pulled a straight face during the conversation, and Cheyenne slowly realized that in addition to the friendly, helpful side, he also had one that was shady and unpredictable. He used his intelligence to be inscrutable. The girl could no longer tell when he lied and when he told the truth. Simply leaving without a word, however, was out of the question for Cheyenne at that moment. All right, I get it. Sasha is right. I should just not trust you and better ignore you. In my opinion, it would be better if we went our separate ways from tomorrow. Without wishing him a good night, she went back to her friend. The girl was glad that Sasha didn't ask how the conversation had gone. Cheyenne sat down next to Arukas on the ground by the fire and supported herself with one hand, stroking the fairy wolf with the other. She stared thoughtfully into the glowing flames. The young woman noticed her depressed mood and seemed to understand. As I said, be careful with him. You should try to get some sleep now. We have a long journey ahead of us. I'm going to keep watch at night, and I'm not trying to dissuade myself, yes? I'm sure you've already noticed that I can be stubborn like a donkey. And don't worry so much. Tomorrow the world will look completely different again. So at least until you're really awake after waking up, after which reality catches up with you again. But at least it's light again and we can see something. Sleep well. Cheyenne snuggled up to Arukas. Sasha had once again managed to get her mind off things, and she even had to smile a little. Well, at least she's telling the truth directly. When I wake up, the worries return, that's true. It's really funny. She always and everywhere seeks out the optimistic part. Good night, Sasha. Thank you. However, the girl was not tired at all, and found it accordingly unfair that she should now sleep and the friend stayed awake because of her. But it was true that Sasha was stubborn like a donkey, and probably preferred to keep watch herself, in part perhaps so that she could keep an eye on Glaczio. Cheyenne closed her eyes and tried to calm down on the hard sandy ground. After a while she fell asleep. The flames of the fire danced soothingly and crackingly. Glaczio stood about 2 meters away from the heat source and did not seem to intend to get any closer to it. He looked at the chosen one of darkness in her restless sleep, and without turning away from her, he spoke to Sasha. Hey, Sasha Mouse, your eyes are already closing. I kindly volunteer to take over the night shift for you. You can thank me later. The young woman rejected his offer. And what do you dream of at night? As if I would just entrust Cheyenne's life to you. Who knows what you'll think of again? I really hope the knights will get hold of you soon, because if not, I'll kill you with my own hands, I swear to you. By the way, you did a great job earlier. You know she trusted you. Glaczio closed his eyes and crossed his arms. Hey, baby, get your act together. Shouldn't it actually be in your interest that she no longer sees me as trustworthy? Now you have what you wanted. She will also become more cautious now, which is very beneficial for all of us. Oh, yes, I almost lost sight of the actual topic. Basically, I have no particular interest in whether you leave the night watch to me or not. You're so tired you're going to fall asleep anyway. But don't worry, I'll take care. Sasha narrowed her eyes and made a threat. Remember these words, idiot, because you will hear them so often in the near future until the meaning of them enters your oh-so-pretty head. If you harm Cheyenne in any way, you have forfeited your life. I swear to you, I will not allow you to hurt her under any circumstances. Is that clear? Glaczio was silent and sighed. Sasha knew that she wouldn't be able to keep up with her tiredness for much longer, because last night she hadn't slept a wink and watched over the girl and her health. Alone. Glaczio had been gone and only reappeared in the morning. The young woman was sure that he had spent the time of his absence with the pink-haired girl from the inn. She yawned and looked at the flames again. In case I fall asleep, which certainly won't happen, dare to put out this fire. You can also keep night watch from up front. The healer sat down, and after a while his theory worked out and Sasha fell asleep. The next morning Cheyenne was woken up by Adokas. He licked her face lovingly and woke her from her restless sleep. It was already beginning to get light. A pale colorful glow of the chroma stars moved over the country and a new day dawned. The fire was out and the girl looked around. Sasha was with the horses and tightened the saddle belt. Glaczio walked further away along the beach. So he's still here. Oh, good morning. I hope you slept well, although it looked more like you had nightmares. But that's no wonder with what you're going through at the moment. I tried to get rid of the idiot, but unfortunately he really wants to continue to come with us. I hope we manage to be in Vacoralis by tonight. This is a small beach village in the far west of Luminastrel. From there a sand passage starts, and when we cross it we come to northern Halonia. At trot pace it is about a day's ride from here, which means that we will be galloping for most of the distance. The faster we are there, the better. It's really lucky that we got these horses, or rather stole them, because on foot we would probably die of thirst out here before we arrive in Vacoralis. Unfortunately, we have nothing to drink or eat. Okay, I'm done right here. So, I really hate to ask it, but could you go get Glaczio? We should start slowly. Cheyenne nodded. Apparently Sasha had been waiting for her awakening and had already made plans for the day in the meantime. The girl was now a little embarrassed to have slept for so long. She made her way with Adokas to the healer. Ah, now I even have to go get him because he's unable to stay here and help Sasha. Or maybe she sent him away. She said she wanted to get rid of him, so there was probably a fight. Well, I don't really care what happened. Cheyenne trudged through the fine sand and the fairy wolf ran a little way in front of her. Glaczio was now only a few meters away from her when she was suddenly pulled backwards, lost her balance and fell to the ground. However, the sand cushioned her fall, and she landed reasonably gently. In front of her stood a tall man with dark blue shorter hair and cobalt blue eyes. He appeared to be around 40 years old and had an water elemental weapon. However, it was not a simple sword, but something the girl had never seen before. 2 gigantic water blades were connected by a handle in the middle. The man was very muscular and radiated a strange calmness. He also spoke to Cheyenne with such. Be so good as to let yourself be killed without resistance, chosen one. That makes it easier for both of us. The tall man had spoken to her in the most polite manner and even seemed to have respect for his victim. In his eyes Cheyenne could see that he seemed to feel sorry for her. In addition, he gave the impression that he himself doubted his intention to kill her. Then he lifted the double blade and let it smash down on his victim. Cheyenne was able to turn away at the last moment and escape death. Her heart was racing, but she tried to stay calm and think clearly. She had learned that anything else would not help her in such a situation. The man raised his weapon a little again and narrowed his eyes. But not because he was angry. He had compassion and seemed sorry that he wanted to kill the girl. At that moment Adukas jumped at the blue-haired enemy and dug his teeth into his muscular arm. The tall man moaned in pain for a moment, but then he threw the fairy wolf away from him, and the four-legged friend landed whining on his back, a few meters away from the fight site. Cheyenne took advantage of the distraction and took some sand in her hand, and when the enemy turned back to her, she threw the fine pale yellow grains in his face. He seemed to have gotten some of them in his eyes, but raised the double blade again. Although he didn't see where his victim was, it was guaranteed that the blow wouldn't go nowhere. Cheyenne closed her eyes anxiously, but instead of feeling pain, she only heard something hit the enemy's blade and shatter on it, but had enough strength to stop the attack. The girl opened her eyes and saw splinters of ice lying around her. Whatever had hit the man's heavy weapon had been strong enough to make him stagger, and he almost dropped the double blade. The sand didn't seem to bother him anymore, because he had his eyes wide open and attacked again. The enemy seemed to want to kill Cheyenne at all costs, even if he was sorry. She closed her eyes again and made herself small. She would certainly not be so lucky again. The girl was already preparing for everything to be over and saw part of her life pass by in her mind's eye. Hadn't she intended not to die because of this chosen cause? So in the end she couldn't escape her fate after all. And she felt a tremendous cold near her, but no pain. Is this what death felt like? But then she heard something hit the enemy's blade again, but this time it didn't shatter. Cheyenne opened her eyes and saw where the cold was coming from. Glaczio stood protectively in front of her and blocked the attack of the big man with all his might. It had been the icy air of his elemental weapon that she had felt. The ice sword was a lot smaller than the huge water double blade, and the healer was nowhere near as strong as the muscle-bound enemy. The elements in the weapons also started a fight, because Glacio's ice blade kept freezing the water tool at the point where they met, but the water in the double blade moved in wild waves and steadily freed itself from the frost. Cheyenne was sure that the healer's defenses would no longer be able to withstand the big man's attack, and if he didn't come up with anything clever quickly, the enemy would crush him before the girl could get up and help her protect her. "Glaczio defends me again. I just don't see him through. Is he friend or foe?" Suddenly the strength of the attack diminished, and the tall man opened his squinted blue eyes wide. He seemed to realize that someone had stopped his attack, and it looked as if he knew his counterpart. This reaction was the healer's luck, because he would not have been able to maintain his defense for a second longer. Cheyenne had already noticed that his legs were giving way under the weight of the double-bladed blow, and if that had happened, the enemy would have had an easy time. He would then kill her and possibly also her protector. But luckily it didn't come to that. Glaczio used his only chance to his advantage. His ice sword suddenly began to glow enormously bright blue and had become a lot colder again, as more cool air sank to the ground than before. The blade seemed to be more powerful now, and the healer managed to completely repel the attack of the blue-haired, seemingly baffled man. Has he transferred some of this power to his sword, or why is it so strong all of a sudden? Was this an elemental attack from the ice weapon triggered by mental power transfer? This is quite possible, because unlike Sasha's pistol, the sword does not have a controller with which you can switch between attacks. If I ever have an elemental sword, they will probably explain it to me. I'd like to know earlier, but I really don't want to ask Glaczio at the moment whether my assumptions are correct. He may have defended me now for some reason, but I'm sure he's still in the same mood as he was yesterday. Cheyenne hurried to get up, then grabbed her bow and unfolded it ready for battle. As she did so, the enemy's voice sounded again, but this time not calmly, but angrily. "You miserable traitor!" He stood about 2 meters away from her, and the girl saw that he was staring at Glaczio in anger. The enemy's body, radiated pure anger, but the girl could also see sadness in his eyes. This man, what is it about him? Aren't anger and grief actually contradictory? And why did he feel sorry for me when he actually wanted to kill me? Either this guy is just weird or he has a really hard life. Glaczio tilted his head, looked at the enemy, and asked him a question in his usual unimpressed and arrogant way. Should I know you from somewhere? The man clenched his free hand into a fist and gritted his teeth in a rage. Cheyenne feared that the healer had overdone it and that this statement could have disastrous consequences. The enemy was already raising the double blade again, whose calm water had meanwhile turned into stormy waves, and was about to attack with all his strength, which was now also strengthened by his rage. I know that Glaczio can fight really well, but maybe he underestimates this opponent. The knights he has defended me against so far were nothing compared to this man. He might still be able to cope with the strength. After all, he can dodge really quickly, well, and even elegantly, but I don't really know if this strategy can work with the guy. The double blade is huge and it must be really hard to dodge. Why did this idiot provoke the man? And why does one of our enemies know him again? Cheyenne was annoyed with the healer, but he just stood there calmly, didn't prepare for an attack, and seemed to be waiting. She didn't understand what he was up to. But then she heard footprints in the sand that were quickly getting closer. The girl looked around for the sound and discovered Sasha, who came running to her and stood next to her. Glaczio put away the eye sword, closed his eyes and crossed his arms. For a few seconds he remained in this unimpressed disinterest and dismissive attitude. Cheyenne wondered what he was up to. But then it slowly dawned on her when Adukas, who had picked himself up and seemed to be unharmed, came to her and growled menacingly. The enemy took a step back, for it was now 4 against 1. So that's what Glaczio was up to. It was his plan to wait for Sasha and Adukas, because he knew exactly that this man would think twice about attacking us again or not, because we are definitely in the majority. The healer's intelligence still left Cheyenne speechless. In the meantime, the tall man was steadily retreating and was about to flee. We will meet again, Chosen One, and then I'll make sure that no one protects you anymore. Then the enemy fled in the direction of Saraley, but he seemed to have problems walking because he was not very fast and limped from time to time. Nevertheless, his last words crept coldly down the girl's spine and frightened. Sasha did not want to accept the attacker's escape and aimed the pistol at him. No, you can't escape me. I prefer dead enemies to living ones, especially when they look like they belong to the rulers among the knights. Despite all that the enemy had said and done, Cheyenne did not agree with her friend's plan. After all, the man had taken pity on her and seemed to have doubted his plan very much. Because of this, she wasn't even so sure if he was actually one of the knights. The enemy had also promised her a reunion. If their paths crossed again, she would try to overcome her fear not to die in the process and hope to find out more about him. The blue-haired man was a very strong opponent, and if he really doubted himself and his actions, it would be possible that the girl could convince him to change sides, because she would rather see him with the shadow servants so that she wouldn't have to fight him again. His strength was breathtaking, and he was a very serious and dangerous opponent. They would have a huge advantage over the knights if he joined one of the clans and was their ally. Cheyenne would only have to be convincing enough and survive until she had persuaded him. That's very easy. I'll make it. Oh, I'm so dead if I try to do that. But I just have to try. If the shadow servants had him on their side, they could hold their own better against the knighthood. But if he's a knight, it's going to be really hard to convince him. He has called me the Chosen One. Well, I don't know for sure if that's really me, but even if I should be, maybe I can evade my tasks in this way by simply finding strong people for the shadow servants, and thus they will surely win the war and everything will be fine. It is also in my interest that the knights are defeated, so this would be a possibility. But on the other hand, The clans could also do this on their own. To get new members, you don't necessarily need the help of someone who seems to have been blessed by some goddess. That would happen automatically over time anyway if the knights continue like this. Cheyenne sighed and shook her head to put an end to her train of thought, because Sasha was about to shoot at the man running away. The girl turned to her friend, but before she could say anything, the gun was lowered. Glaczio had stepped next to Sasha and held her hand with the pistol to the ground. He looked after the fugitive and justified his action. "Hey, Sasha Mouse, keep it easy. Although you always look so damn sexy when you kill, I think in this case I could do without this breathtaking sight for once. If you were to use your mind instead of your instinct for a change, you might be able to see that this guy is not a ruler. He wore neither a cape nor any special armor, and did not carry any troops with him. Nor can he belong to the knights. They are not allowed to possess elemental weapons, so that the rulers can distinguish themselves from them in power and strength. A decidedly useless demand. What I can imagine as very likely, however, is that he is an outsider, but who is still on the side of the knights. He could also be a mercenary, because whoever kills the Chosen of Darkness first gets a huge reward from the Knighthood of Light. Besides, this guy didn't even know what he was doing and was apparently quite desperate. Baby, you should feel sorry for the old man, not shoot him just like that. Take a closer look at it. He even limps. I think he has already received his punishment, enough for many more sins that he will commit. Since all these reasons are guaranteed not to satisfy you, I want to give you another one. You have incredibly good instincts, so you should feel that somehow it doesn't seem wise to kill him. He could still turn out to be useful, don't you think? Anyway. Yes. As for you, my angel of death, the next time someone attacks you, you don't play the scaredy cat anymore and do something. I don't want to protect you all the time anymore. Behave like the Chosen and fight. Yesterday you weren't so squeamish either. So what's your problem? Who is afraid is weak, do you know that? Especially if you're Chosen. You're a disgrace. The gods must be crazy or enormously stupid if they have chosen you of all people. You will never be able to save this world from the sinister plans of the Knights of Light. It's really sad that they chose you. I wish we had never crossed paths, then at least I would have been spared this misery. Cheyenne lowered her head. She was shocked by his words. She tried with all of her might to fight the tears, but she couldn't do it, and a few rolled down her cheeks to the ground, where they were clearly visible in the sand. The girl hadn't expected him to finish her off like that. On the contrary, she had hoped that his behavior would be a little better today, just as the wound on his face had almost healed and disappeared. But apparently she had been terribly mistaken. Arukas nudged his owner, but when he realized that it didn't help, he bared his teeth and growled at Glaczio. The latter did not deign to look at the fairy wolf, and looked after the man. Sasha stood there and seemed shocked and incredulous about what her old acquaintance had just said to her friend. She freed her hand from the healer's grip with the pistol and gave him a strong slap in the face. Then she took a step back, holding her gun in his face. The young woman trembled with anger and wouldn't think twice before doing something that couldn't be undone. She almost couldn't find words, she was so horrified, angry, and speechless. But then she made a threat that was more of a death sentence. How dare you make her cry? Why do you say such things? You're such a miserable bastard. I can't find words for it anymore. I warned you. If you ever hurt Cheyenne in any way, you forfeited your life, and now it's time. I don't watch it anymore. Not Cheyenne, but you are the shame here. My life will soon be enriched by so much when you are no longer alive. Say goodbye. Sasha loaded her gun and was ready to fire the fatal shot at any time. Glaczio, however, stood in front of her and didn't move an inch. Only his beautiful light blue hair played in the wind. He looked at the young woman with half-open eyes and showed no emotion. He didn't seem to care that she was about to kill him. The wind became stronger, and you could hear big waves breaking in the sea. The air tasted salty, and the glow of the chroma stars became stronger and stronger. Seagulls croaked in the distance, and the two horses snorted nervously. Cheyenne stood there and had to watch as Sasha was about to steal Glacio's life without rethinking everything. A few tears steadily found their way down her cheeks to the floor, but she didn't sob and breathed normally. The girl didn't even know what had hurt her more. The fact that someone with whom she had traveled a lot, who had helped her so much and was always so kind to her, and whom she had once trusted, told her that she was a disgrace, or was the reason why she cried that in her eyes everything he had accused her of was actually true? Cheyenne now hated the healer deeply. Even though he had told the truth for a change, she could feel that he wanted to hurt her on purpose, but the girl just didn't understand. Why had he become so mean? Now she hadn't even tried to talk to him and he's playing so badly with her. How could she have been so mistaken about Glaczio? She should have known that he was only pretending to be so friendly to her. But even if Cheyenne wouldn't mind Sasha extinguishing his life anymore, she didn't want to see someone die again. She planned to take him all the way to Vacorales, because out here the chances of survival were pretty slim, but once they reached the village, they would part ways forever. The girl hoped that she would never have to see Glaczio again after that. Cheyenne stepped in front of the healer and looked at Sasha sadly. Her friend didn't seem to understand, so she gave her an explanation. "Please don't kill him, Sasha. I don't want to see blood again. We'll take him to Vacorales and then we'll send him away, yes? He has saved my life too many times for me to allow you to kill him because of me. I'm sorry." The young woman sighed, slowly lowered the gun and put it away, back into the holder. Then she turned and went to the horses. Cheyenne turned to Glaczio, who didn't dare to look at her anymore. "I think now we're even. I don't want your company and help anymore. I'm sorry that everything turned out this way. Forgive me. I know I'm not a good chosen one." She couldn't bring herself to say more and ran with Adukas to Sasha. When she arrived at her friend, she hugged Cheyenne tightly and wiped a few tears off her cheeks. Then she helped the girl onto the horse and gave the big animal a slap so that it slowly started moving. This probably meant that the young woman shared her horse with the healer. Cheyenne was relieved when it actually happened. She wouldn't have been able to stand having him so close to her now. Adukas ran ahead and the small group galloped towards the beach village of Vacorales.